Welcome everyone to yet another On Data podcast. Today we are discussing a topic that is extremely relevant for many SAP customers right now, the move from SAP ECC to SAP S/4HANA. For many organizations, this is one of the largest transformation programs that they will run in the coming years. It affects core process, it affects their system architecture, the reporting, operating models, and in many cases, the way business functions collaborate with IT. But there is one topic that is often underestimated in the early phases of this program: master data. And that is exactly why I am very happy to welcome today's guest, Marcel Hugentobler from Apgar. Marcel works with organizations on master data management, data governance, and SAP-aligned MDM solutions. And he has seen many large-scale transformations from close range. Marshall, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Kinshuk, pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation because this topic is becoming more and more important. Many organizations are now either preparing their S/4HANA migration, already executing it, or trying to stabilize the data foundation after go live. And in all three situations, master data plays a much bigger role than people often expect at the beginning.
Exactly that, and that is why I think the discussion will be useful not only for data teams, but also for the SAP program leads, the enterprise architects, the business process owners, and executive sponsors. So let us start with the big idea. Before we talk about accelerators or EBX or templates or implementation approaches, I want to put one statement on the table. If listeners remember only one thing from this episode, it should be this: an ECC to S/4HANA migration is not simply an ERP upgrade. It might sound like that, but it is not simply an ERP upgrade. It is a master data transformation program wearing an ERP costume. Let me explain why. When organizations move from ECC to S/4HANA, they are not just changing the technical platform or moving to a new user experience. They're also changing the structure and meaning of some of the most important business objects in the enterprise. The classic example is the business partner model. In ECC, many organizations have separate views and processes for customer and supplier. In S/4HANA, the business partner becomes the central object. And that sounds like a technical design change, but in reality, it forces the business to reconcile identities, roles, relationships, duplicates, ownership, and governance rules. And it does not stop here. The material master data has to be reviewed and harmonized. The finance master data has to be aligned. Organizational structures, reference data, code, and hierarchies, they all needs to be consistent. Integrations with non-SAP systems has to keep working. And all of this data may have been created over many years, often decades, right? Across different countries or divisions or local process and legacy systems. If organizations treat these as a pure IT migration, they usually discover the real data problem late in the program. Sometimes that happens during testing, sometimes during mock cutover, and in worst case scenarios, only a few weeks before go live. When orders do not post correctly or reports do not reconcile, supplies are duplicated, or business users lose confidence in the system they rely on. So, Marshall, let me start with a broad question. From your perspective, why should companies think about master data before or during or after the S4 HANA transformation rather than treating it as a parallel cleanup activity?
That is exactly the right framing. The reason is simple. S/4HANA is a process and technology transformation, but master data is the foundation that defines whether those processes can actually run in a reliable, scalable, and compliant way. If master data is inconsistent, even the best SAP design will struggle. The system may technically work, but the business outcome will not be trusted. You may have processes, analytics, automation, but if the data is not appropriate, the respective systems will struggle.
Yeah.
And that is why we always recommend treating master data management as a transformation stream in its own right. It needs executive sponsorship, clear ownership, defined governance, process, and a platform that can support the life cycle of the data before, during, and after the migration. And this platform also needs to be fit for the future.
That brings us nicely to Apgar. So, for listeners who may not know you yet, what does Apgar bring into this type of transformation?
Apgar is a consulting firm specialized in data. Our core topics are master and reference data management, data governance, integration, and the operationalization of data management practices, also leveraging AI competencies. And over the year, we have delivered many MDM programs across various industries. And after delivering many of these projects, we noticed a recurring pattern. Of course, every client is different and every company has its own specialities and definitions.
Yeah.
But when you look at the structure of MDM implementations, a large part of the work repeats. And the same domains appear again and again: business partner, material, finance, organization, and reference data. And similar with the workflows: create, validate, approve, enrich, publish, and archive. The similar challenge you also see on the governance and integration topics. So our question was, why should every client pay to rebuild the same foundation from zero? That is how Apgar Business Solutions came into existence. They are pre-configured SAP-aligned MDM solution templates. They include the data models, workflows, validation logic, and most importantly, experience from previous projects. The objective is not to force every customer into a rigid standard. The objective is to start from a proven foundation and then adapt intelligently where the client is truly unique.
So, instead of starting with an empty platform and designing everything from scratch, you start with a proven template and customize from there.
Exactly. And the benefits are quite concrete. First, the implementation cost can be optimized because the project team does not to reinvent the standard patterns. Second, time to market improves because the client can see working processes and models very early. And third, risk can be reduced because the design is based on patterns that have already been tested in real projects, which helps to improve the data quality right from the beginning.
This is a good moment to bring the visual model from your presentation. You describe Apgar Business Solution as a three-layer model. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. The three-layer model is a simple way to explain how we combine a powerful MDM platform with reusable business content and client-specific requirements. Imagine a pyramid with three layers. The bottom layer is the software layer. In our context, this is EBX. EBX provides the enterprise MDM capabilities for data modeling, validations, workflow, orchestration, hierarchy management, and many more. So it gives us the technical foundation to manage, master, and reference data in a controlled and scalable way. But a platform alone does not solve the business problem. A platform gives you the engine, but you still need to define what the engine should do, which business case it should support. That is why we have the second layer. That's the solution layer where the Apgar Business Solution sit. This layer, we bring pre-configured content, SAP-aligned data models, business glossaries, validation libraries, workflow patterns, role and permission templates, dashboards, integration concepts, and best practice implementation guidance. So, for example, if a client wants to govern business partner data in the context of S/4HANA, we do not start by asking what the customer is or what the supplier is. We start with a proven model that already reflects S/4HANA concepts. The third layer is the customization layer. This is where layer 1 and 2 are customized to meet the client-specific requirements. Or in other words, that is the MDM projects which we do together with our clients. Every organization has unique business rules, compliance requirements, non-SAP objects, specific validations, individual workflows, and integration patterns. Within the customization layer is where we implement those specifics. The approach with EBX allows also to start with one domain and extend it later continuously, following the start small, think big motto. The platform can evolve, the solution templates can evolve, and customer-specific extensions can evolve based on the specific needs. In summary, we want to build a solution which can grow together with your organization.
And in your experience, what does this mean for project delivery?
Well, it changes the starting point. In a pure greenfield approach, the project starts with a blank page. The first months are often spent defining data models, processes, roles, and rules. Yeah. And with the accelerator approach, the project starts with a working foundation. We can show business users concrete workflows and screens much earlier. They react to something tangible instead of abstract concepts. In our project portfolio, we see substantial effort reductions compared with a greenfield approach, always depending on scope, complexity, and customization depths. But for me, the biggest value is not only speed, it's confidence. The client can see earlier whether the design works, the business can validate earlier, and integration risks become visible earlier. And governance discussions become more concrete because people are not talking about theory. They are looking at the actual processes.
Okay, so the message is EBX provides the platform, Apgar Business Solution provides a reusable operating model, and the customization layer makes it fit to the client.
Exactly. Software at the base, business solution in the middle, client-specific value on top.
Right. Let us make this very practical. What accelerators are available today, and how do they relate to SAP transformation?
Today, we typically talk about four main SAP-aligned accelerators. The first one is business partner management. This is highly relevant for S/4HANA because the business partner concept is one of the most visible changes for many organizations. The accelerator supports customer, supplier, and employee-related business partner scenarios and can also be extended to other objects. The second one is material master management. Material data is often one of the most complex domains because it touches procurement, manufacturing, logistics, sales, quality, finance, and also compliance. And the accelerator supports the life cycle of material data, including request, enrichment, approval, validation, and distribution. It can also extend to plant and sales specifics, plus many more. The third one is the finance master data management. Many companies still have finance reference data managed in spreadsheets. local tools or fragmented processes. And our accelerator creates a governed layer for finance critical reference data and master data. As a additional dimension, we also offer a solution to manage the organizational and reference data aligned to SAP requirements. And this covers, amongst others, also the management of key value pairs, which is necessary for backward compatibility. All in all, the management of reference structure is extremely important because a lot of integration and reporting depends on consistent reference data. And the common theme across all 4 accelerators is SAP alignment. That means the terminology, structures, integration patterns are designed with the SAP context in mind. The goal is not to create a separate MDM universe disconnected from SAP. The goal is really to create a governed master data layer that supports SAP and also connects to a broader enterprise landscape.
That distinction is important because many companies are not only SAP companies, they have SAP, but also CRM, PLM, procurement platform, data warehouses, and industry tools, and local applications.
Exactly. In many transformation, S/4HANA becomes the strategic ERP core, but it is not the only system that uses master data. That is why EBX is a governed MDM layer is so powerful. It can support SAP requirements while also enabling consistency across non-SAP systems. And that is often where the business value becomes visible. Fewer duplicates, better process automation, more reliable analytics, faster onboarding, and clearer accountability.
So we have covered the strategic view, the 3-layer model, and the accelerators. I think it would be useful to switch into a more practical mode. Many listeners are probably asking themselves, what does this mean for my own S4HANA program? Where do issues typically appear? Like, how early should we start? What role does EBX play? And how do accelerators actually reduce implementation risk? So, Marshall, are you ready for a few practical questions?
Absolutely. These are the questions that usually decide whether master data becomes an enabler or a bottleneck in the transformation.
Perfect. Let's go into the Q&A. And these are typical questions that we have seen or we have faced in a day-to-day basis when we are going to such a scenario, right? So the first question is, why is ECC to S/4HANA also a master data transformation and not simply an ERP project?
Great question, and we see this a lot. The principle is simple. The migration touches almost every major master data domain at once. It is not one isolated data issue. It is a simultaneous redesign of how critical business objects are structured, governed, and consumed. The most obvious example is the move to the business partner model. Customer and supplier information that may have been managed separately for years now needs to be reconciled. Duplicates need to be identified, roles and ownership need to be clarified, and relationship needs to be understood. But the same logic applies to material data, finance master data, organizational data, and reference data. A good example is a global beauty company that consolidated more than 20 ECC systems into one S/4HANA environment across more than 100 countries. The ERP migration was complex, of course, but the real challenge was harmonizing decades of master data that had grown locally with different rules, different owners, and different levels of quality. If that data had not been addressed properly, the S/4HANA platform would have inherited the fragmentation of the old landscape.
Yeah.
So the takeaway is this: the ERP migration is visible, but the master data transformation determines whether the new ERP landscape is trusted, scalable, and usable.
Thank you for that. All right. So the second question is, what are the most common master data challenges you see in S/4HANA programs?
The most common challenges are business processes, duplicates, conflicting definitions, and unclear ownership. In many organizations, we see that the business process is somehow working, but
Yeah.
when it comes to the ownership and later to the implementation, it's not defined at all. This challenge gets even more difficult when looking at the local variations. One country may define a supplier differently from another. One business unit may classify materials differently. And these differences may have been manageable in a decentralized system landscape, but they become painful when the company moves toward a more standardized and centralized environment. And then there is also the ownership. Who is allowed to create and approve a record? Who is accountable when quality is poor? And many programs discover that these questions were never clearly answered. To summarize, master data issues are rarely purely technical. They are usually organizational issues expressed through data.
Now, my third question is, what is the role of EBX as a governed MDM layer before, during, and after migration?
EBX can play a role across the full transformation lifecycle. Before migration, EBX can act as a governed staging and harmonization layer. It helps you profile, cleanse, enrich, validate, and approve master data before it is loaded into the target environment. During the migration, EBS can help to manage coexistence. Many companies do not move everything in one big bang. There are phases, countries, business units, or domains migrating at different times. During that period, legacy and target system may run in parallel, and EBX can help maintain consistency and distribute governed data to both sides. And after migration, EBX becomes the ongoing master data governance layer. It supports change requests, approvals, validations, distribution, and stewardship across SAP and non-SAP systems. One strong example is an international energy producer and trader that needed a backward compatible business partner model. They had R3 supplier and customer concepts on one side and S/4HANA Business Partner concept on the other. And EBX helped create a governed model that could support both realities during transition. The takeaway is that EBX is supporting such projects end to end. It is the continuity layer for governed master data before, during, and after the transformation.
Final question. What are your top three recommendations for organizations preparing for ECC to S/4HANA?
My first recommendation is to treat MDM as part of the SAP program, or at least very, very closely connected. That means a dedicated ownership, planning, budget, governance, and measurable outcomes. If master data is only added as a work package under data migration, it is usually discovered too late. My second recommendation is to define governance before selecting or configuring tools. Technology is important, but it cannot decide who owns the data, who approves changes, what quality means, or which rules are mandatory. Those decisions may require business accountability. And my third recommendation is to be ahead of the SAP Go Live. This means be ready with the master data by 2 to 3 weeks before the SAP goes live in order to avoid seeing data issues at the same time the ERP goes live. And this can reduce a lot of stress. And across large programs, we consistently see that scale is not the enemy. Complexity is not even the main enemy. The real risk is ungoverned data.
Okay. All right. So before we wrap up, could you share a few proof points? Like, where have you seen these concepts applied in practice?
Of course, let me give you three quick master data success stories from three different industries. As already mentioned, a global beauty company with 22 plus disconnected SAP systems. We pulled it all into one platform that now runs 11 million records, 30,000 daily updates, and more than 14,000 users across 110 countries. Second example, we also have a major aircraft manufacturer which was onboarding suppliers by hand, and we automated the whole process into one governed hub feeding both their SAP systems. So creating suppliers and material in a fast, clean approach. And the third example is an international energy trader that had data scattered everywhere. We brought it also into a single governed platform across SAP, non-SAP systems, killing duplicates and getting trusted data flowing across the business. So different industries, different starting points, but the pattern is the same. Trusted master data is the key.
Marshall, that is a strong message and a very practical way to look at S4HANA transformation. If I summarize today's conversation, I would say there are three big takeaways. First one is S4HANA migration is also master data transformation. Second is EBX can provide and does provide a governed MDM layer before, during, and after the migration. And the third one is accelerators like Apgar Business Solution can reduce risk and implementation effort by starting from a proven SAP aligned pattern rather than a blank page. Marshall, any final thought from your side?
My final thought would be, do not wait until data becomes a go live problem. If you start early, master data becomes an enabler. It helps the business simplify, standardize, and scale. If you start too late, master data becomes a risk that the program has to manage under pressure. So my advice is bring data governance into the transformation from day one, connect it to business outcomes, and make sure the operating model continues after go live.
Excellent. Marshall, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kinshuk. Was really a pleasure.
And thanks to everyone listening. If you would like to learn more, visit the ON EBX channel for more conversation around data, governance, and enterprise transformation. And if your organization is preparing for executing or stabilizing an S4HANA program, this is the right time to ask how master data fits into the journey. Thanks for listening and see you in the next episode.